let me bring in the guests who are joining me live. Skand Tayal, we also have another specialist. He'll be joining me shortly. But before that, coming to you, Mr. Tayal, Saurav Shukla, I can see founder newsmobile.in is also live with me. Saurav, I'm coming to you first. The big takeaways and what is the anticipation that you have will happen in the next 24 to 48 hours as the world looks at New Delhi?
Absolutely, Maria. This is going to be India's biggest diplomatic moment. I can tell you that this is a moment of India not only showcasing itself on the global arena, whether on the strategic dimension, on the economic dimension, also as a leader not only of the global south, but a rational voice for the world. If you know the Prime Minister's pitch at the ASEAN summit, where he has not minced any words, this is India's muscular diplomacy coming to the fore. He's also talking about India's soft power, and what you will see when the world leaders arrive at Bharat Mandapam will be a display of India's economic inclusion, its economic might that it has achieved, its digital might, and this is what he's trying to send a message to the world, that India today is the voice of reason, voice of rationality, and also voice of innovation. That's something which will be one of the big takeaways for India and for Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who's put a lot of, I would say, not only political equity into this, but his personal stake in it. The manner in which he's created a global chemistry with world leaders like Joe Biden, the fact that he's having not only a one-on-one, he's hosting a special dinner for him, that itself demonstrates. In fact, Joe Biden skipped the ASEAN summit and he's coming to India for the G20 summit. That demonstrates India's growing stature in the global arena.
I'm going to come back to you, Saurav. There seems to be some problem with that audio line. Skand Tayal, Mr. Tayal, for you, what will be the big takeaway, and what are you expecting in the next 48 hours to unfold? And of course, this is a big moment, a moment of great pride for India. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has given a personal touch to this entire event, and 10 months of India's presidency. The focus is on digital public infrastructure, but at the same time, that the voice of those who have not been heard for decades must be heard. So that GDP-centric development should be about human-centric development now.
I think the preparations for a G20 summit by India have been absolutely unprecedented. And really the work started last year, middle of last year, and our structure, everything was ready. And so much of an amount, investment of intellectual investment of ideas has been done by all our ministers and officials, and with full participation of all the 20 members, that we expect some really very good outcomes from the summit. Because if you look at the last 2-3 declarations of G20, they look more aspirational. There have not been real tangible outcomes, some numbers on some clear targets. And the way Prime Minister Modi functions, the way Government of India functions, I think Government of India, Prime Minister will take the lead, and in his statement he will come up with some very major announcements that on digital, what can India share? Our achievements are stupendous. The whole world acknowledges the scale of our achievements, and whether it is UPI, whether it is Aadhaar, whether it is COVID platforms, and all these in some ways will be demonstrated to all the 1 lakh or at least 20,000 delegates who will be going to the new Mandapam. But what Prime Minister could offer is that whatever we have, the software which we have developed is available free for sharing to the developing world, and that will really be a kind of a message to the developed countries that what are you doing? $100 billion you promised in Paris, and NATO countries have spent or have committed to spend $100 billion on the Ukraine war, which is a creation of their own. The NATO has created Ukraine war, and they have no money for climate change. So I think India will lead by example. And on crypto, we can expect some very clear roadmap how to regulate this beast so that does not affect the sovereignty, the financial sovereignty of all the countries, and does not become a conduit for criminal money transfer.
And you make an interesting point of how India, along with the United States, is actually pushing for greater leveraging of capital for multilateral development banks to make these new institutions, old institutions, I would say, prepared for new age challenges and perhaps have a more sympathetic view towards the developing nations. Saurav, I'm going to take that point forward with you, but before that, Dr. Zakir Hussain is former research fellow of Indian Council of World Affairs. He's a foreign policy expert. He also joins us. Dr. Hussain, in terms of bilaterals, of course, the big summit will be tomorrow, but the bilaterals are beginning today. The choice of invitee countries, India, be it at G7, was on the high table. India was in Hiroshima. Prime Minister Narendra Modi had traveled to G7 in Hiroshima, sending a message that the voice of the emerging nations must be heard. Similarly, India has invited Mauritius. India has invited Bangladesh. How do these invitations actually take place? Is it left on the country holding the presidency?
Let me first say that this is India's movement to lead the world. In this, bilateral optics comes very important, and the first place is United States, which is not only holding the bilateral issues, but multilateral and global issues in which the voice of voiceless South, global South, is being addressed. US has said that it is going to cooperate India in restructuring the multilateral development bank for the 21st century, which is core of all issues. All the declarations are there. When there is no finance, there is no movement. I think so. So the first task is to manage the finance on which India, US, Bangladesh, Mauritius are going to cooperate and work together. And second, India is providing a vehicle that is through digital infrastructure, UPI, and all these things. So it is becoming a cost-less development backed by effective financial resources. So which is finance is everywhere, be it climate change, be it development, all issues. And these three countries are very important for us.
Absolutely, because financial inclusion action plan, Saurav, 2024-2026 will be based on the template of digital public infrastructure. This will be the big takeaway of India. As I talked about multilateral development banks, the message is that there is a need for tripling lending to benefit poorer and developing countries, the focus on financial stability, but also at the same time that there is need for a helping hand that has to be given to the African countries.
Absolutely, Maria. That's the reason why you will see the inclusion of African Union, which India has strongly championed to join G20 as a full-fledged member. The other thing is, I see from the Delhi G20 Leaders Summit is etching out of a new international paradigm which sets into motion a rules-based international order, which includes global economic inclusion, revitalizing and reforming the financial institutions like World Bank and the IMF so that they cater to the global South and also tackle challenges that plague the world today of climate change, of financial inequality, of getting these countries on board this new digital superhighway. So all these are being championed by India. And the good thing is that India has emerged as a consensus builder where it has roped in the developed world to back its position. As I mentioned earlier, the US's support was critical for India to carry through some of these agenda items, and it has managed to do that. And that's the reason why the P5 countries, barring obviously exception of China, they are all backing India to carry forward this reform. And I would say that the message is that the India success story, the India growth story, will drive some of these global agendas in the year to come, which will also focus on uplifting the global South. And India has emerged as one of the undisputed leaders of that bloc. Maria?
It's about empowerment. The word empower as India focuses on women's economic representation, not only in the country, but it has become a voice and is championing the cause of that as well. The final word to you, Mr. Tyal, in terms of the meeting with President Joe Biden, what is it that you would say that will become concrete? You know, the fact that he did not go to for ASEAN, he decides to travel to New Delhi for this crucial summit. Prime Minister Narendra Modi was just a few weeks back, I would say, in Washington for that crucial state visit. Is this new ties which will have lots of other countries in Asia worried?
I think most of the countries in Asia would be happy. You know which two countries will be worried. The rest of the countries, because under the Chinese expansionist policies, we saw what kind of a map they put out, which is an absolutely absurd map. And half a dozen countries of Asia have protested. So most of the countries of Asia, Indo-Pacific, want a strong, robust presence of United States in this region. We all know how Japan was defeated. Japan was defeated because the United States forces came. Even China should understand that. Otherwise, half of China was under Japanese control. So it is a question of balancing, and India is doing its best to first send a message to China that please behave yourself, please don't pursue these policies. And I think most of the countries of Asia, Indo-Pacific are with India and United States and Japan and Australia. So we should not be shy, but we should keep all our options open, as United States is doing. 3 of their secretaries have been to Beijing recently.
That's right.
So every country, including India, they are sending 2 messages to China. Please come back to the ways of status quo maintenance, dialogue, diplomacy. But if you go on this expansionist path, then also we are ready to deal with you.
All right. Thank you so much to all the guests. We'll continue this conversation shortly. Sort of appreciate your time. Thank you so much to Dr. Hussain as well.